Welcome to the Dads with Nerdy Ambition podcast. I'm your host, Steve Pugh, and I don't know why I extended my last name there. But ladies and gentlemen, I do owe you a huge apology. I know it has been a while since I did my last episode, and unfortunately, our good friend David could not be here tonight. He is busy being an adult, which is always fun. But it is, it is that time of the season where everybody gets sick and, the holidays happen. So Thanksgiving happens, which is always fun. So ladies and gentlemen, I do owe you an apology. However, I'm going to make it up to you tonight because I have this crazy young, amazing actress and filmmaker, Rachelle Henry. She is, there's so many things this young lady has done. And I say young because she's 22 and I'm 36 and I am now old. I get told that on a daily basis now. So without further ado, let's talk about this lady right here. So she is an award-winning actress. She is both on film. She won the best teen actress in a short film called Jersey Girls. She starred in a short film called Grifters. She won best young actress in a short film, the second annual Young Entertainer Award. She won so many different things for her short film Missing and Defining Moments. She is a philanthropist. She is constantly busy, and she somehow made the time to come on the show with me tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, the wonderful, the impeccable, the adorable Rachelle Henry. Rachelle, thank you so much for being on the show tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Did I cover most of it? Did I get, or just like a third of it? No, I don't feel like I did.
Hearing it read off, it sounds like a lot.
It is a lot. It is. Yeah. You are absolutely, and I joked with you earlier about this, and we talked about your schedule because when we were trying to set this up, you are absolutely insane on so many levels, and in a good way. And it truly, truly is a good way, because you're constantly doing stuff. You're constantly, whether it's your acting or your writing, you are helping out, you're supporting your community, and you're making time for me. And it is, and at 22, you have more ambitions than I would say, like at least a solid 80% of the people out there. And it shows. And I have props to you. Good job.
Thank you so much. It's interesting because having all these different things going on, but for me, it's all the love for the art, the craft, the business side of everything. And ultimately what I like doing, no matter what it is helping others or inspiring others, giving back one way or another. I think everything ties back to that in a way. That at least is my goal, because I want to help people. I want to make people smile. I want to make somebody's day better or educate somebody, inspire somebody. And I feel like all the different aspects of what I do and what I've done all kind of tie back into that. So thank you so much for that really sweet intro.
Now, I'm going to ask you that because that is such a sweet and endearing thing. Was that your mentality at 6 years old when you started acting, or was it, I want to be famous?
Never. It's never been, I want to be famous. That's all. That's been consistent the entire time. For me, when I was 6 years old, the idea of performing, I think I've always had that where I like making people smile, performing, being creative, because the first thing I did, my first love actually was dance. And I really liked, performing in dance recitals. I had so much fun doing that. And then I eventually moved into doing cheerleading. And that's kind of how I actually got started, because I did these cheerleading classes, dance and gymnastics. But with cheerleading, I went to these camps and I ended up meeting some people that were talking about Nickelodeon was going to do a Fairly Odd Parents spinoff that involved kids doing cheerleading. I don't know if that was ever made, but what it did bring me was the idea of, I could maybe be a part of that. I like writing stories. I like acting things out for my family. I love dancing. I love singing, performing. So I thought, this might be a great thing to do. So I told my family, and they were like, oh, okay, cool. They talked about it amongst themselves, but they didn't talk about it in front of me because they were never wanting to push me into anything I didn't want to actually do if I wasn't serious about it. And of course, you can't really tell with a 6-year-old, are they being serious about
Oh
it?
yeah.
Or is it just, a nice little whim they're talking about? And so they said to me, you're going to have to work very hard for a long time if you're serious about this. And my literal reply was, yes, please. And that is what I said in the room. And so then I started training. I did more theater back then. Of course, acting classes, and I was still doing dance, gymnastics, singing. And then I think age 10 is, even though I technically started when I was 6, I would say age 10 is that turning point in my career where I was definitely more serious about it and I was actually starting to work more. And I really did see it as this could be my career.
Mm-hmm.
This is my future. And because that year I was in a music video, it was part of a director's competition for, Moby,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
So it was for Hello Future. And we
Okay.
had this music video called The Day, and it was about these two homeless girls who were surviving on the streets. And that was a very intense role. And then that same year, I did the film Ira Finkelstein's Christmas. I was technically an extra in that, but I was sitting right behind Elliot Gould and David DeLuise. And what was great about that, it was my first time on a bigger indie set. And of course, being behind, an Oscar nominated actor and then another iconic actor, and they watching them work together and they were improvising and, having to see them do it take after take after take, but make it fresh each time was very inspiring. And also to see a strong female director leading the crew was very inspiring. Shout out to Sue Corcoran because she really did inspire me. And the way she treated her crew was also very inspiring to me. The way she treated the crew, the extras, everyone. She treated everyone with the same respect. And that has always stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
So shout out to Sue for being an inspiration clear back to when I was 10. And then the same year, I also did the musical theater show Oliver, and I was cast as Oliver. And those were the three things that year that really were a turning point for me, especially like with Oliver, even though that wasn't film, that was my first time performing in a theater show that was a mix of adults and kids, had the wireless mics, had stunts we had to do. We had a live orchestra. And of course, being the lead in a bigger production of it was very cool. And especially because I've always loved Oliver Twist. So it was very exciting for me. But I loved the sense of community and getting to work with the group I did work with. Shout out to Mary Springer of 12th Night Productions. It's really bittersweet for me this year because 12th Night is now shutting down operations because Mary and Rick are retiring. I love you, Mary and Rick. I feel a little emotional. I love them so much. So it's bittersweet that they're shutting down because I worked with them not only on Oliver, but 2 years in a row I was Susan in their performance of Miracle on 34th Street. Love them so much, and they've been such an important part of my life, and they've made such an impact. So shout out to them. And I love 12th Night Productions so much. Always will. Have super fond memories. But all that to say is that I think that those early years really did impact even the way I think now in the business. And I think especially age 10 was when I really started taking it more serious as a career and really could see a more defined path. And then from there, just started working more and more and more and more and more. Yeah, I think that age 10 was the big turning point, the big,
Yeah, no. Well, I'm going to tell you this. So we were about to be besties because I don't think I've actually said this on the air. So I'm going to get a lot of judgment for this. But I was a male cheerleader in high school. I actually got my letter in cheerleading in high
That's
school.
awesome.
No, there wasn't really a lot of sports when my graduating class was 55 people. So we had like,
Oh, wow.
yeah, tiny. There were very few things. Um, and then you asked me if I knew who Moby was. And yeah, that was a little shot in the heart right there for that one. So right now we're frenemies, but um, so you have done a variety of acting, and I wanted to ask you that if you had ever done theater. And so knowing that you've covered theater, you've done TV, you've done miniseries, and you've done movies. Is there a certain medium that you prefer? Do you prefer the stage? Do you prefer musicals, or do you
Um,
get
I
to dabble in
definitely
all?
prefer TV and film. I will always have a place in my heart for theater.
Mhm.
There's definitely been productions that have made me go, "Oh man, I wish I could do that right now." Because actually I just was in New York and I went and I saw Into the Woods, which is my all-time favorite musical on Broadway. There was multiple times where I was watching, I was like, should I go back in the theater? But the reason I had to even switch was because the time conflict. Because especially like during Oliver, you're the lead, you have to be there for every single rehearsal. Um, and it was for 4 months that we rehearsed. And so I was there all day rehearsing. And I at one point had an opportunity to audition for a commercial. It paid, I think, $4,000, but I couldn't do it because I wasn't able to go down to Portland, Oregon for the audition, and I wouldn't have been able to shoot on the days because it was going to be opening week.
Mm.
So it was, that kind of made me think, okay, I kind of have to pick a little bit more. And so I ended up picking TV and film. That doesn't mean I haven't done any since because
Mm.
I did do during the pandemic, I did do virtual theater for the first time. So I did get to go back and kind of stretch my, theater skills a little bit again. But it was different because you're doing it over Zoom. But it was in front of technically a live audience because YouTube live, we didn't have a way to stop and do another take.
Mm.
And it was in front of a green screen, our full bodies acting with our other fellow actors. We had stage directions, all that. So it was interesting. So I kind of have done theater recently, but it was in a different medium. What were you going to say? Sorry.
Oh, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I was like, I wanted to ask you, was it more like you were just practicing your lines, but doing it? No, really.
No, it was imagine if you are in a sound stage
Mm.
and you have other actors you have to act with, but you are by yourself
Okay.
physically in that realm. So what we would do, and that was with Lockdown Theater. I did 2 productions with them over the course of the pandemic.
Mm.
What was interesting about, and my favorite one that I did with them was called The Bridge. And it was this emotional 1 act play. And it only had 3 actors. And it was about trigger warning, suicide on the Golden Bridge, which is a very heavy topic. And so what they did was they had green screens, and then we would of course be on Zoom. It'd be the other actors, and our tech director would then kind of cut us out and then put us in different, put us in front of a location. They had real footage from the Golden Gate Bridge playing, like going on that minute. So like anytime the background, like it looked like the sun was changing, it's because it was that. They added some animation on top of that so it wasn't so realistic.
Mm.
And they would map us out and put us kind of physically on the bridge. So it looked like we were standing next to each other when in reality, we weren't at all in the same place. We were in different states. But it was, and also anytime you'd hear a car driving by or you'd hear a seagull, it was a real seagull. It was just happening to be flying right then in the middle, and we couldn't do anything about it. It was live footage. But that was interesting, getting to do something so emotional. If you go on to YouTube, you can go find it. It's a very bittersweet story.
Mm.
And we did have some people tell us that it did save either their life or save a friend's life. So I'm very happy that a production like that could actually save someone.
When you get compliments like that, when you get those statements like that, how does that make you feel? And like, what what's the inspiration does that give you for your career?
That one was emotional, because knowing it's knowing with that one, knowing that somebody's hurting so much that that's the course that they're going to take. It's hard. And then knowing that whatever work you did may have given them a little bit of hope is, it happy's not the right word, because it's not that kind of emotion, but you definitely feel emotional and you feel honored that you were able to help them in that way.
Is it humbling?
Definitely, definitely. And we actually got to talk to a guy who I think is one of the few, he's either the sole survivor or one of very few that actually has survived. And we got to talk to him, and he did like a message before the play, and it was very, like I said, it was a bittersweet, emotional thing. That play was very emotional because my character was constantly on the edge, and she was very angsty. She was a very broken teenager, and having to also convey, because the plot is two strangers meet on a bridge, both of them for the same purpose, and they both are trying to stop each other. And then they eventually meet this angel character who saves both of their lives. And the angel character happens to also be somebody who was in that dark place, but eventually got out of it and wanted to help people. So that's the plot of the story. And having to establish the relationship of these people meet, and they have to build a connection in a quick enough time that they would want to try to save each other, and they have to have that connection where they would actually fight to make sure the other person survives. But at the same time, these people just met, and you have to make it realistic that they wouldn't immediately be friends. And of course, my character, being the angsty teenager, didn't immediately become friends with this middle-aged professor. So it was but establishing that was very interesting. That was quite the production. And I was happy to do it in the middle of the pandemic because we didn't have any other projects going on. So it gave me the opportunity to not only work on some theater skills, because theater can teach you a lot. Doing some theater skills, but also still working within a tech, cinema-based medium was really interesting.
That's awesome. I want to transition to another project since we're talking about such a surreal project that you've done. My Summer as a Goth, which was looks like an absolutely amazing project that you were working on. And when I was researching this, I was watching this and I was going, wow, this is something that is very much relevant. And you get to see the coping mechanisms that were taking place in this film. And it's very interesting. And I'd love to know your take on this movie.
Definitely. It was great that they shot it with real teenagers because we were able to bring in those aspects of our real life into it. My character, Molly, is the best friend, and my character really represents acceptance, because when her best friend decides that she is going to go goth, my character doesn't judge her for that. The only thing my character is critical of is the fact that she is dating a guy who is obviously toxic and doesn't treat her right. And I say to her that I'm going to support her, but I don't think that she's making a decision that is true to her. And I don't think that it is a healthy decision for her. But my character, in terms of how the best friend identifies, completely okay with her going goth. She thinks it's cool. She ends up dating a goth boy herself. And
Spoilers.
even though but my character really, she loves a person for who they are, not how they dress, what clique they're in. She doesn't care about that. If you're a cool person, she'll hang out with you. And I really like that my character was the person that wasn't trying to tug the character Joey in one way or another.
Mhm.
If like you need to be more of a normie or you need to be more goth. My character was like, just be you, whatever feels most natural for you. And so I really liked being that role. And my character, of course, is fun loving and is wanting adventure and is wanting to try new things. And I will say, like, as an actor, being the only teenager in the film of the main cast that didn't go goth or wear the goth makeup was kind of sad because I was like, oh my gosh, I'd love to do the makeup. And they were like, well, maybe we'll make you a little bit of alternative at the end. And so I was like, great, I'm going to be, having a little bit of a transformation. I didn't get that transformation.
In my mind, I was sitting there going, that's a lot of makeup to put on and off your face. I thought you were going to be like, oh yeah, I didn't have to put on the makeup. It was so great.
Oh,
But
I've had roles. I've worn prosthetics. I've done full goth before for roles. I one time for a makeup artist demo class, they turned me into a bald man with a beard. So I'm down, and I ended up going to a premiere afterward, still wearing because
nice.
so I'm down to try different looks.
So let me ask you this, because you were, of the teenage age when you did this, what is it? How relatable was this film for you as a teenager, as a young adult, to your actual life and how you feel life is treated the younger generation?
I definitely think that coming of age projects really can impact the way a teenager views themselves and views relationships. I remember at one point in an acting class, even us performing Perks of Being a Wallflower and really talking about Perks of Being a Wallflower really has those moments of talking about living in the moment, taking every moment and just enjoying life.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like an example of a coming of age project that really can inspire a teenager. Now with this one, while I wasn't going through what a lot of the characters in the project were going through, I definitely understand the friendship dynamics where somebody can be changing and where that can be where you really want to help them in that and know that you let that person know that you have their back and that you support them. But then if they change their attitude toward you or change how they act, it really can be frustrating as the friend. It can be hurtful. And of course, like, because I was 15 and 16 when we filmed, because we filmed over the course of 2 different summers. Of course, in that time period, teenagers will have that, Definitely I've had some friendships where that was the case,
Yeah.
We've all had that. So it definitely was relatable. And I know that other kids in the cast, I'm not going to speak for them, but they definitely did have some struggles that were parallel at the time of filming. But I think that then when the film came out, we're all in our early 20s and it's interesting to see and reflect and see some changes, because we have some jokes within the cast of when we watch the film behind the scenes, we know what each other was like feeling at that moment. And then we watch it, we're like, oh my gosh, we've changed so much since then. So it's funny. I definitely think that the film is relatable. And I think that a lot of teenagers can identify with multiple, even if you're not goth or even if you're not alternative. Self-acceptance and those coming of age themes are very important for that age, where you are starting to figure out more of who you are, where you're supposed to be in the world, all of those things. And I think that project definitely does tap into that really well.
And that's awesome. I really liked it, and it did reach to me on a level that I don't think it reached you. I don't think you had your emo goth phase, did you? No. See, I did. But it also reached on to me, and we are a nerd podcast, and we will get into the nerdy stuff. But a lot of nerd culture has this. We have gone through this transgression where it is, we are the outsiders. We are looked differently. There was a time, as a shocker as it might be to you, nerd was not cool.
Right.
D&D and Marvel and all these things that I am very much passionate about were not cool. and we're not accepted. And so seeing projects like this, even recently Tim Burton's Wednesday, it's reaching, watching and seeing the things that are progressively accepted. It's mind blowing to me. And seeing my summer as looking at my summer as a goth, I said, wow, I can really relate to that on a much younger me level, going the finding my clique and the coming of age and discovering who I am, especially as a nerd. Which we'll get into our what we are as a podcast, which is nerd culture. And you are nerdy, by the way, which is
I am.
it's awesome, because we were sitting there talking, we were getting up for this interview, and I was like, yeah, what nerdy things are you about? And you just gave me this list. And you are Marvel, you love Star Wars, you love Sherlock. Now, is that Robert Downey Jr. or is that Benadryl Cucumber
Benedict
Patch?
Awesome. Benadryl Cucumber Patch all the way.
I love him too. And Martin Freeman. Oh my God, such a great combo.
Love them. I was way more of a geek about it in my 15 to 17 range, but I still love it. But that was in the day where I was buying merch all the time, or I was so into the fandoms and all the theories and all the fandoms and everything about it. Like, I was super into it. I was like, that little detail means this. Like, back then I could tell you everything about it. Nowadays I can only remember a time of the theories.
I like him. I love Robert Downey Jr. He's a great Sherlock. However, I'm going to make the joke name again, but Benedict he's a method actor. And so it is a lot more, I don't know, is Robert Downey Jr. a method actor too?
I actually don't know.
I should know that. I should be researching these things.
What I do know is that, which I've only seen a little bit of the Robert Downey Jr. version. What I do know is I one time saw this documentary that was about the forensic science behind all of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's books. Mm-hmm. And they say that version of Sherlock, the BBC version, is the most accurate to the books, despite being set 200 years later, based on the different forensic methods they used, the different detecting skills, even the way Sherlock would interact with people. It was the most accurate to the book, which I find so interesting, adapting something that is set so many years later, but being so accurate to the character and his methods. And I love true crime. Forensic Files is my, anytime I travel out of town and I'm in a hotel, Forensic Files. I
can't tell by your acting career here that what your genre of choice is.
I love so many different genres.
You love you are
I grew up in
Seattle,
buffet. Which is, of course, where they are going to try to do some nerdy projects, sci-fi and horror and drama, and comedy. You're gonna have a whole gambit over there of what people want to do, which I think has actually really benefited me being now here in LA, because I'm ready and I'm open for all different genres. I mean, the Mosquito Coast is a crime drama thriller. You have Dead to Me, which is a dramedy. You have Gaslit, which is a Watergate era comedic drama thriller. You have all those different things going on.
And I'm going to touch on it just a little bit. You know what? Let's just go ahead and let's talk about it, because I have been giddy about this. And you did the SOMA transmissions. You were an actress in that. And SOMA, ladies and gentlemen, is this sci-fi horror game that is just absolutely twisted. It's the best way to describe it. It is this game that basically takes your ideology of what is life and what is considered human, and just all these horrible twisted things for it. And they came out with these mini episodes called the Transmission Files, and you play Lisa Golaski.
Alyssa
Golaski. Yep. Sorry.
It's okay.
I know that. I know that too. That's the worst part, because I've seen these.
It's interesting until I saw. I remember talking with the director about that her name is Melissa, but she goes by Lissa. But after filming, I only thought of her as Lissa until I saw this wiki fandom article that was like Melissa, in quotes, Lissa Golaski.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, I completely, because, when you hear a nickname so often, that's kind of what you latch on to.
Yes.
So I completely understand.
Yes. So talk to us about this, because you were telling me earlier you have a fun story about this. So I'm absolutely giddy here.
I have so many cool things about this project. I remember when the director talked to me about it. This was before the game was officially released to the public that we started filming. Imagos Films made 2 short films in partnership with Frictional Games, which
Mm.
makes SOMA and many other horror first-person perspective games. And they were so popular on the internet that it ended up being made into originally a feature, but it ended up being cut into a mini series, which I think was actually a really smart choice. So people could watch more episodes and could have a cliffhanger. I think that was a really smart choice to turn it into a mini series. But when we were filming, we thought it was a feature film. We filmed at the SATSOP nuclear plant. It was never officially launched as a nuclear plant, so don't worry about any chemicals or anything. But we did film inside all those structures. That's where we filmed a majority, except for the scene where I'm on the video chat with my dad in my room. Everything I did was inside SATSOP. All of the submarines and the different structures, everything was filmed inside there. And that was an incredible location. How
Was it
often
creepy? Like, was it naturally creepy? Like,
it was,
oh,
because it's, of course, middle of nowhere. You have to
yeah.
drive into the middle of nowhere to get to this place. It's very empty. It has this very kind of dismal feel. It's very gritty. It's very lonely. Like, I didn't feel lonely there, but it's a lonely feeling area. And it's massive structures, dark gray tones everywhere, and you have to have flashlights to see where you're going half the time. So it was definitely naturally a creepy location.
It wasn't hard to get into character, was it?
No, it was, well, you know, I had fun developing both of Lissa's two. You know how Lissa kind of had 2 personalities going on.
Yes.
The real Lissa, who is this bubbly young girl who, of course, is missing her father, but has to be strong and, knows that there's weird things going on in the world, isn't quite sure what all is going on, but knows that there is going to be change happening. And then you have the Lissa that was created by the WoW, which is a scary and menacing version of this girl. So when I was doing the wire work and I was 40 feet in the air and I'm having to lift Adam up and I'm being all menacing, that was so much fun getting to be on those on those wires. We had Aaron Crippen, who worked on Batman versus Superman, and I think he immediately left to go shoot on Chicago Fire like right after. He did a great job of prepping me to be on the wires for hours at a shot, because the thing with the wire work is you're in this harness that's pulling you up and you're using muscles that you don't normally use, and you have to be really strong to stay in it for hours. It really pulls on you. You're 40 feet in the air, so you can't, well, I originally started lower and then they rose me up. I think they didn't show it in the miniseries, but they did actually at one point have me do a Tom Cruise Mission Impossible fall.
No
At one
way.
point. So, and they dropped me really fast. I was up in the air. They think we shot like 2 or 3 times. And
Oh my
actually,
God, you poor thing.
oh no, I had fun doing that.
Really? Oh my God.
Especially the way that not Adam, especially the way that Aaron Crippen prepped me for it. He had me come in and try on the wires a few times before I actually filmed. He got me used to the wires swinging. He would push me and, let me see what it feels like, would raise it up higher, would drop it a few times. And he would do slower, faster. He had me practicing like the laying out more flat, the tilting down, had me practice all of those mechanisms before we actually went fully up in the air. And I think that his approach really helped with the mentality, especially. And that really helped because then, of course, you're not having your fear, you know, bogging you, which I'm not really afraid of heights, but in that kind of a location, it definitely could have been scary. But the way he directed the different stunts really made it a more comfortable environment than, let's say he hadn't taken the time to show me what it was going to be like on wires. It might have been a very different feeling, but it allowed me to then really like tap into that grimacing wow character too.
So let me ask you this. After doing the transmissions, do you have any desire to do more game related stuff? Have you thought
Oh, yes.
about voice acting with it at all?
I've done voice acting before.
Oh,
I did it for one video game. I don't remember what it was called. But I have done voiceover work and I do actually train in mocap with TJ
good for
Storm,
you.
who, if you
Good
know,
for
he is
you.
Godzilla in Godzilla and Godzilla King of the Monsters. He's the king of mocap, and he started his own mocap studio called Mind's Eye Tribe. And they also teach, stunt performance, monster and creature movement, um, tactical swords, a variety of different kinds of stunts and mocap training. And I also train with a guy who also teaches at Mind's Eye, but I train with him privately for more variety of sword fighting. Terrence Rotolo, he and I have worked on, oh my gosh, how many different kinds of sword fighting now?
Yes, we should mention that you are
Yeah.
trained. You are a trained sword fighter, and you are also a jouster. So you
I
your
am very
nerdy card
beginner
is
in
still. Oh, and
jousting.
your archery.
I'm better in archery than I am in jousting. I am very beginner in jousting.
All right,
I
Katniss. All right, calm down
I'm
over there.
I'm I would say intermediate,
Okay.
intermediate coming into advanced more in sword fighting. Especially the way that Terrence has trained me. Um, I've always loved broadswords and I trained in it a little bit when I was younger, but it wasn't a official like worldwide known system and it wasn't historically known techniques,
Mhm.
but Terrence has really brought that in. So he's taught me, which I didn't know this, a lot of productions will lean more into Japanese or Asian sword fighting techniques and not as much European nowadays. But he's teaching me both and a variety of different techniques within those and different kinds of blades and weapons so I can be prepared for anything. For example, I love broadswords. Those are my favorite things. He's teaching me how to do really delicate fencing movements with a broadsword. So that way, if I wanted to add any finesse and kind of, trip up an opponent in the middle of a broadsword fight or add some flair, like my character's trained in a variety of styles, I can have that.
Do you
So,
play D&D, by the
no,
way?
I don't, but
You
I know
really,
what
really
it
should. You really should, because everything you're describing is like you are a fantasy nerd.
is.
I am giving you the blessing. You have you.
If I had more time, you wouldn't believe how many times I've had friends saying, like, oh, you'd be so good in gaming or blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, have you seen my schedule? I
Yes,
wish.
but if
I
you
wish.
can, if you think you can fit a game in, let me know. I'll DM for you. We'll do it virtual because oh my god,
Awesome.
you're so cool. And I know we've been going for a while, and we still have to
Great.
talk a little about. No, stop. This is what we do. Welcome to the podcast. It's but there's so many things about you, so I'm definitely going to have to get you to come back on here because I want to
Oh,
spend
yeah.
time on your up and coming things because you just did Martingale. You have a movie coming out. You are in a movie called Bermuda Island, which we get to
Yes.
announce comes out January 20th. You are so there are things I want to talk about, and I want to get to these because
Yes.
this is what we brought you on the show for, and we're not even there
Let's do
yet.
it. Let's do it.
Okay, so let's go ahead and let's talk about because you just finished up, and it's actually the season finale is coming up for the Mosquito Coast, which you
Yes.
played Annie in. So how excited are you to know that you are wrapping up a show for the season finale, starting off
It
here?
was It was so exciting because I didn't know that it was going to be the season finale until I got the script. And there was many script rewrites even when I was in Tulum night before, even on set, there was rewrites. But knowing I was in the season finale and knowing what happens in the end is crazy. Of course, I can't say anything.
Yes.
I'm really good about not telling people anything. I'm very good at it. But knowing what happens was so exciting because I already know what's gonna happen. For me, it's interesting watching the series right now because I don't know what happens in the first 8 episodes. I only know what happens in episode 9 and episode 10. I have no idea what's happening before. So to see everything play out, and I don't know, of course, how they're going to edit even my episodes, and knowing what happens. I have a friend who's with the Hollywood Foreign Press Association who has seen the episodes already and said, wow, it's so cool. You're seen doing this and this and this. And I'm like, oh, wow, great. So somebody's already, seen it.
Cool. I don't even know.
Right. He's talking to me about it in depth and because he's now seen it. And I'm like, this is great. I can't wait till I am seeing what we did. And this was a thing also with Dead to Me. I want to know what takes they pick because we did a variety of different things. Our director, Metin, I think that's how I'm probably butchering his name, but Metin, he was a wonderful director. He's directed so many series I love. And he did a great job of giving the actors parameters to work within, but also letting us play around and bring our own ideas to the table. And he was so great about letting us try a variety of things. And he would give suggestions and then say, all right, go back and do it the way you did 2 takes ago. And it was wonderful getting to collaborate with him. And it's been fun to watch his other episodes of Mosquito Coast this time, seeing like, oh, I can definitely see some of his style within that.
Yeah.
So that was wonderful. And getting to work in Tulum, Mexico, basically a paid vacation is incredible.
Life is tough.
No idea. I had no idea that that's what I was going to be doing in June. And because I originally was going to be doing a different project and I wasn't able to do it. So I thought, okay, I don't know if I'm going to be working on anything in the summer. And so I thought I was going to go back up home to Seattle to go to my college graduation. Then I had this audition come in and of course turned it in, waited, didn't hear anything back for a while. Then I hear back about a week or 2 later that they said, oh, we love your work, but we want you for the role of Annie. Because I auditioned originally for a different character, but they loved me for Annie. So then I had to wait another week or 2, and then they finally confirmed that I had the role, and they gave me the dates, and then I had to fly out. So I watched my college graduation from the makeup trailer on a live stream. But
bittersweet.
It was. But it was cool. I got to see one of my best friends walk, which was fun. But it was interesting because how often do you get to go work in someplace that's a dream for so many people to go visit and to be able to say, oh yeah, I'm also kind of celebrating my graduation here. How often does that happen?
That's awesome. So let me ask you this, because you were in Dead to Me, you did Gaslit, and you did Mosquito Coast. I'm curious comparatively to, doing Martingale and Bermuda Island, because, when you're doing a movie, you're doing sections and sections that, like, hey, we're doing all these scenes today. We're doing all this today. How different is that from doing your television series comparatively?
I would say that they were pretty similar in that sense, because I wasn't shooting, let's say, like an ABC TV series where it's faster, where they're going to release episodes quicker. These were longer series that were made for premium networks and for streaming. So they take a longer time to film. But it is interesting. The environment is different because you do have more time to establish those characters, and you do have different directors on them. That on TV shows, they're going to have different directors for different episodes. It's not going to be the same director. If you're coming in on a co-star, you won't get to meet every person. that has worked on previous things, you won't have the same kind of connection that you get to build with them. Though I've been lucky on like with Mosquito Coast, I was there for 2 weeks. So I did have time to really build build those connections with the Mexican cast and crew. And of course, then meeting, the director and the other American actors that were flown in, getting to build those relationships. I had more time to do that. But with, let's say, Dead to Me, you're brought in and you are only there for a few hours. I was on set, I think, I don't know, like 5, 6 hours. I wasn't there very long.
Mm.
I got there, they had everything set up, and then brought me in, shot my coverage, and then they had to move things around, and then they brought back in Christine Applegate to shoot her coverage. And then we were done with footage, and then I was wrapped that day. And it's interesting how quickly things can go on a TV set. You get less takes, you get less time with certain things, but it's also very rewarding, and it makes you really have to step up your game too, because you won't have the same chances on, let's say, an indie film.
Yeah.
You really have to, also know that the people watching are the people that are the executive producers that run these series. That it is the heads of these networks that are watching. So I think there's also I'm going to nail this really quickly so they can be really happy with the footage too.
Is it an anxious rush? Because for me, I'm like, I'm getting anxiety for you, but I'm also like, man, I bet that is such a rush.
It's very exciting. So with Dead to Me, it was really interesting getting to meet Liz Feldman. She's just incredible. I mean, if you've seen the show, you know what an incredible writer she is. And she came in, she was in Video Village watching the footage, and we were in a sound stage, so she was kind of outside of that. She walked in and came over and introduced herself, and she said, "You were doing a wonderful job. You're a natural and you're gonna go far." And then she then said bye and walked back. And I was so blown away because somebody who I adore just came in and, told me they liked my work.
Absolutely.
And it's a very brief moment on the show, but it's a very impactful one, because it's a moment where Jen, played by the amazing, talented, and super sweet Christina Applegate, where she came in and she's having a moment of reflection and is kind of seeing a younger version of herself. There is no official young Jen, but I kind of represent the younger version of what Jen would be.
Nice.
And I realized, even watching it, the reason they dressed me in the way they did was to make it even kind of ambiguous to what time period. Is she seeing a flashback, or is that girl actually there? Because they dressed me where I could be in the 90s, or I could actually be there in 2022. And it was wonderful getting to work with Christina. You always wonder what your idols are going to be like when you meet them. And she is just so talented, so kind. When we finished filming, she came over and she extended her hand, and I thought she was just going to shake my hand. And so I was ready for the professional handshake, and she pulled me in for a tight hug.
Aww.
And she held me there for a while, and it was a moment I'm never going to forget, because I really cherished that. And it was right before Thanksgiving. So it was the biggest thankful moment of getting to work with her. I booked it in June of 2021, and then I filmed in November, late November of 2021. And so I had to keep it secret. I couldn't say anything for those months, as well as then until now. And I didn't know if I was going to be able to film, because that was actually around the time of Christina's diagnosis. She was diagnosed in August, and they were in pre-production when they cast me, and it was before it was officially announced. And so I didn't even know, were they going to continue on with the series or not. And I would have completely understood had Christina Applegate said, "I don't want to do this. I'm not ready to do this." But she powered through. I love her. She is such a strong woman, not just because she is fighting this horrible disease, but also she's just this strong, loving personality, and she cares so much about the crew. Watching her interact with those crew members that she's worked with for all these seasons, she loves and adores them, and they love her back. Not just because, it's Kristen
something
Applegate.
special. That's special, though. That's all amazing.
She's wonderful.
She is an amazing person, and my heart breaks. And when I heard about it and everything, because I heard from my wife, and I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to be talking about that to me too. So like, but it's good. I'm glad that she has that support, and to hear such positive things about her is absolutely amazing. And she is definitely a rose in a field of daisies. She is absolutely amazing.
She's so talented. She's as talented as she is kind, and how much that is. She's just a wonderful person.
So we do, if you have time, because we have been going for a while. I did want to wrap up with Bermuda Island, because this is your upcoming project that's coming out. So, how excited are you about that? What little tidbits can you snibble to us a little bit?
I'm very excited for it. It comes out January 20th. I just found out that it comes out January 20th.
Excuse me, my stomach is over here growling because I'm hungry, so I apologize.
So it releases January 20th. It's going to be out in the US and Canada across multiple different platforms, streaming, and I think the world premiere is going to be that day. I have no idea if that's going to be in LA or Las Vegas. I'll find out soon.
Okay.
But I'm very excited for that. That role was interesting because I play this flight attendant named Ray, and it was kind of the first role where I've gotten to play a young adult, not just a teenager. I love playing a teenager. I love doing that. But to play somebody that is working in the middle of a profession, in a high stress career, was an interesting role to take on. I'm wearing a flight attendant uniform, and my character does take on this major crisis. And they let me have the choice of, is she going to freak out and not be able to help people? Or is she going to kind of, gather up all the courage, and she's going to take it on. She's going to make sure that everybody gets through this. Everybody's calm. She will make it her mission to make sure that things go as smoothly as they can. And that's what I wanted to do with Ray. I wanted her to be the strong person that everyone could rely on in a moment of fear. Even if she's terrified herself, she's not going to let that get in the way. She is going to make sure that everybody on this flight gets off as safely as they can.
That's awesome. I'm excited. I can't wait to see this. And ladies and gentlemen, it comes out January 20th. So be prepared to go look for it. Rachelle, I thank you so much for being on the show tonight.
Of course.
Is there anywhere that the good people out in the world of Nerd Nation, where can they find you if they want to, pursue looking into other things that you've worked on?
Definitely. You can find me on my website, which is www.rachellehenry.com. You can find me on my Instagram, which is @the_Rachelle_Henry. On Facebook, it's Rachelle Henry Actress. And I still have my Twitter account up. It is Rachelle M. Henry. And I'm also on YouTube, both as myself and also as The Lightning Hour, which is the talk show that I have with my friends Rico and Sasha. And I also am starting to get ready to have more things come out on my channel for Illuminate Magazine, which is a magazine that I have and run. And along with that, I also, you can find me on IMDb, so you can see some upcoming projects. You are always busy, and I cannot believe you were able to make time for me. And I would love to have you on again, because we did not cover a third of the cool things that you have done and nerdy stuff that you've been a part with. But so let's go ahead and let's wrap this up. As always, please like, subscribe, and follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you are listening to us on Apple or Spotify, please remember to rate and review. We're also on Instagram and Facebook, so please like and follow us @DNA Pod, or on our Twitter, while it's still around, @NerdDNA Pod, or on our webpage, www.nerddnapod.com. I'm your host, Steve Pugh, and I have been joined by the
just absolutely, I'm going to just keep saying this. You're insane. You're absolutely insane with your your time, and the fact that you were able to put this little snippet of around 2 hours to hang out with us and talk about everything that you've been doing. Thank you so much, Rachelle Henry, being on the show tonight. Thank you so much, listeners, for listening. And
thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
It's been a joy.
Yes. Thank you, and good night.
Bye.